This prayer was recited by Sandy 1, which is one of the Sandys, to all Sandys, all those A-10 crews, prior to all CSAR missions, but especially this CSAR mission that happened in real time. They call it CSAR 2517, which I think is meant to reflect Ezekiel 2517. So the prayer is CSAR 2517, and it reads, and pray with me, please. The path of the downed aviator is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who, in the name of camaraderie and duty, shepherd the lost through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to capture and destroy my brother. And you will know my call sign is Sandy 1, when I lay my vengeance upon thee. And amen.
It hurts. It hurts like right here. It's like right here, pain right here. That is Pete Hegseth back in April 2026. You may have seen, I'm sure you saw this video, because that actually is, I can't make this up, that's actually a made-up Bible verse written by Quentin Tarantino for the movie Pulp Fiction and recited by his Lord and Savior, Samuel Jackson. Yeah. And so I guess at some point, this fake Bible verse became like a fake Bible verse for the CSAR guys, which is something military people do. If you're not familiar, we do this weird stuff to be motivational. And then someone translation, our idiot Christian Nationalist Secretary of Defense decided it was a real one or from Ezekiel, which is not, and then decided to use it as an actual prayer at his monthly prayer meeting during duty hours in the actual Pentagon Theater, and made people bow their heads and say amen to a Pulp Fiction bastardized prayer by the CSAR unit, which they're reciting tongue-in-cheek because they know it's fake. But our Secretary of Defense, who's so far up his own coiffed butt, didn't know that. And it's funny on the face of it. It is funny on the face of it, but it's also terrifying on the body of it. Because in the end, what we've got is a Secretary of Defense so obsessed with his Christianity, his perverse version of Christianity. And I will say that his perverted version of Christianity, based in a church that he actually moved to Tennessee, run by a guy named Doug Wilson. He's so obsessed with his perverted version of Christianity that he's calling together our service members and civilian leadership into the theater at the Pentagon to recite made up prayers with this muscular version of Jesus Christ with an M4 and a grenade launcher or something that this man has turned the Lord and Savior, the peaceful man into. And it goes to the theme of what we're going to talk about today, because we're really blessed to have a brilliant guy and a brilliant guest on today who just happens to be a member of Congress, but also a really smart guy and unique human that I've gotten to know very well. But it goes to the challenge we've been seeing with the second Trump administration, and really the first one too. And it culminated in a lot of ways with January 6th, because a lot of people don't realize that one of the dividing influences of January 6th was militant Christian nationalism. If you look at the video, you see that a lot of this was driven by people who are Christian nationalists. And a lot of it was terror. And one of the scary things I discovered recently from the book we're going to discuss today is that references to that element of January 6th were stripped from the report by the January 6th committee at the urging of Liz Cheney, because they did not want to attack Christians. When it's almost like hiding your head in the sand. It's like doing the report on 9/11, but we're taking the part about Muslims because we don't want to offend the Muslims. You see the irony of that and the terrifying aspect of that. And I want to go on and how bad has it gotten? How bad has the separation of church and state in our government gotten? That for me, now you guys, I don't know if a lot of you know my background, but while I was an Army aviator flying those things for my last tour in the 101st Airborne, after I flew those things, I was promoted to be a spokesman for the Army. I was sent to the schoolhouse at Fort Meade, Maryland, trained on how to be a spokesman. Then I got taught at the feet of some of today's greatest generals, General David Petraeus, and then General Marty Dempsey, who ended up being the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and how to be a better spokesman for the Army. And one of the biggest things we know is that separation of church and state is sacrosanct. because the United States military, the all-volunteer force United States military, represents the American society. I was taught that, by the way, in Military Science 101 at West Point in 1983, that an all-volunteer force reflects is a reflection of the society it represents. That's literally the line, chapter verse, if you will, from the science book, okay, military science book. Therefore, that means we have Muslims, we have Christians, we have atheists, we have like Christians, we have Catholics, we have every form, we have Buddhists, especially in the GWAT era, because so many joined to serve their nation. But this is the most terrifying thing I've seen in a long time coming out of the Pentagon. This is the official social media channel of the United States military, 2.2 million service members across the Army, active reserve, the active reserves and National Guard. Satchel, run this video. Pull me on screen, run this video.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
You see that last part? Department of War. That's an official video put out by the United States government's military branch, reciting a Christian prayer and using imagery of death, missiles being launched, tanks, men jumping out of airplanes, violence. And look, man, it's been a long time since I was a young Catholic kid here in St. Louis, Missouri, learning the catechism, but none of that was in there. And that was one of the most shocking things I've seen. And I've seen Pete Hegseth have a mandatory, I don't know if you guys know this, but when Pete Hegseth first started his prayer services, he signed an invitation to the all hands email list of the Pentagon with an RSVP link. And if you ever serve the military, we call that undue command influence. And what that means is the guy who sent you the invite, the highest ranking military person, the Secretary of Defense is in the chain of command, was sending you an invite to a Christian prayer service with an RSVP, meaning he's keeping track of those who come and those who don't. And we brought that out. I brought that out before I ever did my current job. Matter of fact, this is early in this time. This is like one of the first months he was in office. And it made national news. I got attacked for it by DOD. Awesome. But this is scarier because the United States military cannot be a Christian nationalist organization, because the ramifications of that should terrify everyone, every American, to include Christians. So that's why we take my threat of life, the military, and bring in, I'm proud to call him my friend, Representative Jared Huffman. He's got a new book out, and bring it up on screen there, Satchel. We got a new book out called No Profits, The Fight to Save Democracy from Christian Nationalism, written by Jared Huffman, his first book. I'm very excited about it. So let's go ahead and get on with the show. We got a lot to talk about. I'm Fred Wellman. This is On Democracy with FP Wellman. You're here every Friday night with me, live on the Midas Touch Network. If you haven't had a chance yet to like, share, tell your friends we're on tonight or all weekend, I'd love to have you do that. In the meantime, let's get on the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Fred Well, and this is On Democracy FP Well. It sure was just a few minutes. We got a light. A light tells you it's On Democracy. I'm telling you, man. Believe Ted Lasso's back on. I'm not paid for that plug. I'm just a fan. It's so great to have you guys here again. As always, I've loved the Midas Mighty. Man, we got a great conversation ahead of us. I am so thrilled to have my friend Jared Huffman on the show. We're talking about Christian nationalism, an increasingly powerful force inside the American right. And the question is no longer simply what their values are, but how much power, influence it has over our political institutions. I just showed you in the opening the power that Christian nationalism is infecting within our United States military, and just how terrifying this. And I tell you that because, one of my jobs in Iraq when I worked for General Petraeus and General Dempsey is I would tour Iraqi military units as part of my job. I train Iraqi security forces. And when I went to Iraqi security force locations and our Shia neighbors, of our Shia soldiers, they would actually put stickers of their prophets on their trucks. And we carried razor blades to remove those because we did not want the Iraqi military to arrive in villages perhaps inhabited by Sunni Muslims or Kurds and have the Shia icons on their vehicles, thus questioning the loyalty of the Iraqi military. And yet here we are in 2026 with the United States military doing videos of the Lord's Prayer. So joining me is Congressman Jared Huffman. He's a longtime member of Congress, the co-founder of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, author of the brand new book, No Prophets, The Fight to Save Democracy from Christian Nationalism, which comes out August 18th, next week, y'all. So Jared has got a unique background on this thing. Let's bring him on. Thanks, Jared, for joining us. There he is.
Morning, Fred. Great to see you. A great intro.
Thank you. That's great to have you. What I figured you'd love that discussion because, oh my God, it's right out of your book, isn't it?
Well, it is literally on page 53 of my book. As you were doing that intro, you were the first to tip me off that Pete Hegseth was doing this drunken cannonball into the deep end of the constitutional pool by having this mandatory, voluntary Christian prayer service in the main auditorium of the Pentagon. And he had sent out, you warned me, he sent out this email. And by the time we were able to validate that he had actually sent this out to 26,000 military and civilian personnel, their church service in the Pentagon that morning was over. And it's happened every month since then. So thank you for alerting me to this. We've been trying to dog it in every way we can, but this is just one of many points of infection for this Christian nationalist movement. It is penetrating our government at the highest levels, and it's one of the reasons that I wrote this book.
I love it, and your timing could be better because it is just gotten worse and worse. I wasn't kidding in that intro when I said that video of the Lord's Prayer coming on the official DoD channels chilled my bones because it just goes against everything I was raised on, both as a Catholic kid and as a soldier for 22 years, 4 years at West Point before that. It goes against every single norm and tradition, and it does. I mean, when you look at Christian nationalism today, now what worries you the most? Is this the infection? What keeps you up at night on this topic?
Well, this is certainly one of the more glaring faces of it. And what's disturbing about Hegseth, and we can talk about the different subcultures within this Christian nationalist movement, because there's really three ascendant religious subcultures, but Hegseth represents one of them. This group that's known as the Theobros, or the Communion of Reformed Evangelical Churches, led by Doug Wilson, the pastor you mentioned in your intro.
Yeah.
The thing that's so disturbing about them is that, Pete Hegseth is pushing this radical theology into our military and into our foreign policy and now into a Middle East war, which he has characterized as a holy war against Islam. And of course, that is his entire worldview. Anyone who knows anything about Pete Hegseth knows that he's got these crazy crusader tattoos all over his body. He's written a book saying that we are living through a modern day crusade where we have to defeat radical Islam in order to save Western civilization. I mean, these are truly extreme and radical religious views that are guiding our nation's policy and our military and wars, frankly, unfortunately.
I mean, that's the scary part is we've gone to this war now in Iran with Israel. I mean, you have to be, as a policymaker, especially, you'd have to be obtuse beyond measure to not recognize the underlying theme here of why we're doing it and the religious iconography that he's using in the pursuit of this war. And now we're stuck in a war that they don't have an answer to anymore, and they just keep digging in deeper. And I mean, it goes the full circle is our service members, our sailors on the USS Lincoln right now who eating freaking cups of rice. I mean, it is when I think when you believe you're on a crusade, then the crusaders don't matter, right? It's a scary thing.
And the Crusades didn't end up very well.
Didn't work out so well. That's the funny part when you use crusader iconography. And we forget the last part, right? The part that it didn't actually work. And a lot of people died for no good reason. One of the things I brought up in the intro there was, and I learned it from you, and I really appreciate it from the book, is you argue January 6th was driven by more than just Trump, right? Like, what role Christian Nationalism played a role in that, didn't it? I mean, I'm really want to talk about that.
And this is something that is poorly understood, even by
Clearly.
many of my colleagues in Congress who were there that day, who the mob wanted to kill.
And you were, right?
Yeah, I was, and I think the fact that I am non-religious and am openly non-religious and maybe a little more sensitized to these encroachments of religion into our government enable me to see some things that others didn't that day. And I saw all the iconography, all the evangelical worship, everything else that was really, if you look closely, the defining ethos of that mob. And religion experts were lighting their hair on fire about this, warning that this is what happened. This was religious violence. You all need to start understanding that. But even for me, in real time, I thought it was mostly about Trump until I really had a chance to process it and learn a little bit more about these radical faith leaders that were so central to organizing the insurrection, to mobilizing thousands of radicalized Christians to show up. And they were on site preaching and issuing prophecies that day. So this is something that I try to explain in the book. It should have been a great wake up call for our nation about Christian nationalism, but we went back to sleep. We looked away, and that scares me because this movement is bigger and stronger today than it was on January 6th.
And that is where we get into how much this ideology is now shaping American policy and government. I mean, those same people are now being invited to the White House. Those same people are actually in government. Russell Vought is obviously a Christian nationalist as well. He's shaping so much of our government. I mean, it's now across the line where you sitting in Congress are addressing this issue, but it's like a third rail, isn't it? It's very difficult to fight because, as you said, Liz Cheney fought to get the Christian nationalist portions of the January 6th report removed, didn't she?
That's right. That is kind of the untold story that I reveal in one chapter of this book, how the select committee that was charged with doing a comprehensive report on everything that happened that day and why it happened and how it happened. The staff had written up a pretty extensive explanation of the central role that Christian nationalism played, and Liz Cheney vetoed it. She did not want to offend conservative Christians. And we may never know why she did that. I mean, she had some presidential ambition at that point. I think she probably didn't want to be seen as picking a fight with conservative Christians, but it was a huge disservice to our country because this movement could have been named and shamed and weakened, and instead they were left able to regroup and, be ready for the next time Trump or someone else needs them.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, that this movement is fringe, like for us when I was a kid, like you and I are similar ages. How has it become so powerful inside the Republican Party? Like I don't,
Yeah.
it's just taken over, hasn't it?
It's a long-standing project. Right-wing Christians have tried to fuse themselves into the Republican Party going all the way back to the moral majority of the 80s. That was then known as the New Religious Right. They
Yeah,
almost got there under the Reagan Bush years,
yeah.
but it sort of fell apart with the end of the Cold War. The coherence of their movement went away because it had largely been defined in terms of our morality versus the godless Soviets and why we needed to push this hardcore fundamentalist morality into American life. That was the heart of their culture war. So into the Cold War, election of Clinton, an increasing diversification of the country, a little more secularization, and that movement just really lost its mojo. But they regrouped into something far more militant and far more extreme and explicitly theocratic. And that's what this new MAGA Christian nationalist movement is all about. I kind of trace that historic arc of the
Yeah.
movement in one of my chapters of the book. But Fred, the reason why most Americans don't see this and understand it, and most of my colleagues in Congress don't see it either, is we're not very good at talking about this stuff. Uh, Religious liberty is a great part of America, right? We can all agree on that. But we have a blind spot for anything that poses as Christian in particular. We're pretty good at calling out Islamic violence,
Yeah,
right?
no
And
problem there, right?
radicalism. Yeah,
Hence recent elections. There seems to be no problem at all.
exactly. We'll go there.
Yeah.
But there's a quote attributed to Sinclair Lewis about 100 years ago that when fascism comes to America, it'll be wrapped in the flag and carrying the cross. And I think he understood then that we have this cultural reflex against scrutinizing and criticizing anything Christian. That is a huge part of our challenge. And what Liz Cheney did to that select committee report is a perfect example of this Christian privilege problem that we're going to have to overcome if we're going to confront and defeat this movement.
That's a great place to take a sponsor break. Perfect place to take a sponsor break. So let's take a moment, talk to our sponsor. We'll come right back, and we got a lot to talk about. I don't do sponsor reads for things I don't believe in. I've turned plenty down. So before I put my name next to chapter, I did my homework and asked them the questions that you'd want asked. And here's what I found. Medicare is a maze, and most of the help out there isn't really help. Too many agents are paid to steer you towards certain plans, whether they fit you or not. Chapter is different. They're honest. They're the only Medicare advisor that compares every plan in the country, and they're not paid to push one plan over another. If you're ordering the right plan for your needs, they'll tell you that and let you get on with your day. Their advice is completely free, and they can walk through your options in under 20 minutes. Doing this, they've saved people an average of $1,100 a year. If you're on Medicare or you've got questions about it, call my friends at Chapter at 937-507-8644. You'll get a straight answer, and that's rare these days. That's 937-507-8644 to talk to Chapter. Thanks. And we're back. Thank you. So that's the thing you describe, and that's a perfect place to pick up, because before we left is this influence. You describe kind of a shadow theocracy in Washington. So who's actually driving that? I mean, when we look towards the shadows, if you will, what are we going to find out when we turn the lights on?
Yeah, it's not completely coherent. It's not an actual
Yeah.
theocracy yet, but there are dozens of these right-wing Christian ministries coursing through the Capitol every single day and doing it with a semi-official blessing of the Republicans in the Capitol, in Congress, including the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, Mike Johnson's a member.
Yeah.
You said there was 3 pillars. Johnson's a member of one of them, isn't he?
Oh, Johnson is a huge Christian nationalist power player. And he is part of there's some theological nuances between him and Pete Hegseth. Johnson is more part of the charismatic evangelical branch of this movement, which is the biggest and the most dangerous, I should add. Um, but he has brought a lot of these folks in. This guy named David Barton, who has sort of built an entire career on a fake history that sort of tries to morph Thomas Jefferson into a proto-evangelical and argue that they never intended actual church-state separation, that these were God-fearing Christians who wanted our nation to always be a Christian nation, and they have been debunked thoroughly by scholars and the Monticello Foundation for Jefferson and others,
Yeah.
but they just keep pushing these lies and these myths. And Johnson is one of the worst offenders. In his first speech as Speaker of the House, he, in a very sincere way, read this prayer that he said was written by Thomas Jefferson and recited every day of his life until his death. A very evangelical prayer, and it's totally fake. Never written, never said by Jefferson. He never said anything like it. But this is the stuff they do over and over again to drive this Christian nation narrative into our national discourse to try to make church-state separation kind of a joke.
And that takes us to foreign policy. And circling back to where we started this conversation about the war in Iran and everything else, you write about in the book about how Christian Zionism and foreign policy have become intertwined. And there's no, you'd have to be asleep at the wheel not to recognize that this idea of Israel being, central to the Christian Zionism. Can you walk us through that a little bit so people understand? I mean, I think everybody knows it intuitively. When, I know when I read the book, I was like, no, I know this, but you define it really well.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of unpack what Christian Zionism is, and I should clarify. Most Christians reject this theology,
Right.
and
That's
a lot of
the thing.
a lot of these extreme beliefs we're talking about, whether it's Hegseth or Johnson or any Russ Vought or some of these other power players,
Yeah.
they are rejected by most American Christians. But those that embrace them very intensely, very sincerely. Christian Zionism is this belief that the modern state of Israel is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy that heralds the imminent second coming of Jesus. And it's kind of, a strained interpretation of some biblical provisions from the late 19th century. Some theologians cooked this thing up, but it didn't really go anywhere until the late 1970s, early 1980s, when a guy named Hal Lindsey wrote a book called The Late Great Planet Earth. And he pieced together all of these modern headlines. In the Cold War, everyone was scared to death. I don't know if you're my age or not, Fred, but you
I'm
remember
older.
you remember the existential fear about
Yeah.
nuclear annihilation, and it was a
Yeah.
scary time.
I
And we
joined
have
the army under Ronald Reagan, so that tells you right there.
exactly. So there you go.
Mhm.
So this book comes out that starts pattern matching all of these fears and headlines with the Soviets, and all of these biblical prophecies, and it predicts that Jesus is going to come back after Armageddon happens in 1988. Right, one of the great prophetic flops of all time.
Yeah. I was sitting in
But
Korea waiting for it myself.
yeah,
Mhm.
The Late Great Planet Earth, though, was a huge bestseller. I mean, it just rocked the charts. And then people forgot that, the prophecy was a flop, and
Whoops.
you know, time passed. Then a real blockbuster novel series came out called Left Behind
Oh
in
yeah.
the 1990s. And
Oh
these
yeah.
were real page turners, and they were steeped in this Christian Zionist theology that we're getting close to the end times. This is very exciting. There's going to be all this glorious calamity, and then Jesus will return. So, literally from Pulp Fiction comes this belief system that
Yeah.
just swept evangelical Christianity
I
and is
remember.
now embraced by most evangelicals.
I,
And
I, I endured in the
yeah,
army. I had a boss who was trying to drag me to his remember that men's movement they had? They had these men's stadiums where they would come in, oath keepers
Oath
or oath
Keepers.
take oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the original oath keepers. That's why and we had a bit of a falling out. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that, brother. But yeah, I do remember distinctly, and that was the late 90s. That was the mid to late
Yeah.
90s.
So tens of millions of those books sold, and this thing just went viral within evangelical
Mm,
Christianity. And in turn, it began penetrating U.S. foreign policy. And so today you have people like Mike Huckabee, like Mike Johnson, like Ted Cruz, who will articulate why they have this absolutist support for anything the Israeli government says and does. And they relate it back to the Bible. Huckabee says Israel has a biblical birthright to basically the entire Middle East. They can just take it. Mike Johnson says the same thing. In my book, I have a chapter with him going to Ariel, which is a disputed settlement in the West Bank, and literally pronouncing Israel the owner of this disputed territory that was seized in the 1967 war by biblical birthright. And, we have in Congress right now a Judea and Samaria caucus, which is a whole bunch of Christian Zionists in Congress that believe there is no West Bank. There will be no two-state solution. This is all biblical birthright for Israel. And they're excited about it, not because they like Jews or they think Israel should exist as a homeland for Jews. They're excited because they think all of this is bringing on the second coming of Christ and ultimately a Christian kingdom in Israel.
oy vey. It's just, I mean, it is terrifying, and it's real. I mean, this is a real thing. I mean, you were once a devout Christian yourself. You're very clear. You've talked a lot about your journey to this point. What drove you to this point from your upbringing and to a point where you have to speak out? And you're right. It's not a popular stance to take right now. It is not. Even both parties are trying to. Everyone wants to skitter away from this as fast as possible because it
Yeah.
becomes very, very toxic politically, doesn't it?
You're immediately accused of being anti-Christian, and it becomes very unpleasant. But I sort of have some acquired immunity to this, Fred, because I am the only member of Congress out of 535 dumb enough to have publicly admitted I don't believe in God back in
Yeah.
2017. I'm a humanist. I grew up in a faith tradition that was a very lovely faith tradition. I accept, sort of the teachings of Jesus Christ, but I don't believe in anything supernatural. I'm kind of a here and now, show me the evidence guy. I'm a
Yeah.
show me guy from Missouri, right?
There you go. Right.
Um, but I've already been called every name in the book by these guys.
Yeah.
You're immediately branded a demon, antichrist, all of this nonsense. So they can bring it on. I'm going to keep calling them out and taking them on, and that's why I felt it was important for me because I don't see it coming from others at high levels of national politics to really speak out about this threat.
Yeah. And along those lines, I think something you said earlier is very important. We go back to that, which is this is a subset of Christianity. This is not all Christians. It's not anti-Christian to have this conversation because Christians, a lot of Christians themselves are becoming an important force in fighting this, aren't they? I mean, I've seen it myself here in Missouri. So many of our Christian and other religions are fighting back, saying, no, this isn't what we represent. This isn't the faith. This isn't what's the movement? Read the red lines, read the red words, right? This isn't none of this is the teaching in Christ. Christ did not carry an M4. Uh,
Yeah.
is that an important movement? And how do we foster that, I guess?
Yeah, there's some great Christian messengers on this these days. Raphael Warnock, James
Oh,
Tallarico. Uh, in
Senator
fact,
Warnock is amazing.
oh, he's fantastic. In about 2 weeks, I'll be at a book event in Independence, Missouri,
Hey.
with Reverend Emmanuel Cleaver, who is
Oh yeah.
also a fierce critic of this kind of virulent Christian nationalism. So I like the fact that more Christians are speaking out about it as a bastardization of their faith. They think that these folks are doing to Christianity what Pete Hegseth did to basically that fake Bible verse
Yeah.
by just totally fictionalizing this new religion, this new Rambo Christianity, and they're great messengers because no one can call them anti-Christian, right?
Right.
They can accuse me of that, but they can't accuse Reverend Warnock or Reverend Cleaver or Tallarico, at least not credibly. My point in this book, though, is I'm rooting for all those guys. I
Right.
love the fact that they're finding their voice. There are not enough of them.
Well,
They
that's
need they need a bigger coalition that includes the non-Christians and the non-believers. 35% of our country is either non-Christian or non-religious, and they shouldn't just be sidelined while we wait for, the good Christians to beat the bad Christians. We got to build something together that is strong and big and interfaith.
yeah, that's it right there. So, if democracy is the goal, and it's the last question is, what does winning this fight look like to you? I mean, like I said, you've put a lot of effort into looking at this both professionally and as an author now. I mean, what does winning look like? How are we going to win this fight? Now, I was immediately thinking, of course, of flipping the house. A near tactical goal is 82 days. Not that I'm counting for any reason.
No, why wait?
82 days. Yeah, 82 days till the midterms. We have a chance to take Mike Johnson out of power, obviously. It'll be important who we put in. Obviously, that's a good tactical step. What else do you see as winning this fight? What does winning this fight look like to you?
So we've got to win this fight if you want to continue having a secular democracy, if you want to keep these guys from taking away many of our basic rights and taking our country, down the slippery slope of theocracy. But I think winning starts with understanding what we're up against. And that's why as much as people would like to look away from this Christian nationalist movement, might feel awkward to delve into the theology and to other aspects of it. We've got to do it. We've got to understand where their belief system is taking them and how they are entrenched right now throughout our government, way more than most people understand. So that's the start. Then we've got to get over uh, our hesitance to sort of work across religious lines and build a true pro democracy coalition to take these guys on. And it means that secularists like me are going to have to get better at working with people of faith and don't judge them, and vice versa. Right.
Right.
Let's put aside those differences. We can fight about abortion and other things some other time. Right now, we got to save democracy so that we
Yeah.
still have the freedom to have those fights. And right now, that is in jeopardy.
Yeah, and I think that fight really crystallizes here in Missouri. We defeated an amendment last cycle to that actually repealed their attack on abortion with an overwhelming like 60% margin, and then our Christian nationalist Republican legislators put it back on the ballot. Literally said we didn't know what we were voting on, and now they've put it back on the ballot, but adding fighting transgender surgeries in children as the and it's disgusting, and they're gonna try and rely on the bigotry to get us to say yes to just absolute bigotry and hate. But people are onto it too. I mean, I think people are waking up to both sides of this equation, saying, "Wait a minute, this isn't political anymore. This is forcing your faith beliefs upon us politically We have to fight back. Well, we could talk all day. I know you got things to do. I can't imagine why. On that note, so the big note question that we always ask, where can they find you? But more importantly, where can they find the book on August 18th? Go.
Thank you. Yeah, the launch is August 18th. It is No Profits, The Fight to Save Democracy from Christian Nationalism, available for pre-order right now, wherever books are sold. But I'm also going to hit the road. And so I'm not sure where your listeners are, Fred,
Cross
but
country and world.
if they wanted Google No Profits book tour, they will see that I have stops coming up in certainly the San Francisco Bay Area. I've got several of which are already sold out. I'll be in Los Angeles on the 20th with Bill Nye as my moderator, the science guy.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that because the Christian nationalist movement is also at war with science and higher education.
Yeah, we didn't touch on that. I could pull every chapter of the book had something to talk about, but I want to give the whole damn thing away.
Yeah. So then I'm off to Boston on the 27th. I'll be at WBR City Space in Boston. I will be in Independence, Missouri on the 28th. If folks from Missouri want to Google Rainy Day Books, which is our bookstore partner, they will find out. And I'm being hosted by my former church, by used to be the Reorganized Latter-day Saints. Now they're called the Community of Christ, but at their world headquarters auditorium, they have opened the doors to host me for this conversation. So that's really cool. And I'm grateful
really
for
cool.
that.
That's the mission right there. That kind of answers the mission of what you're trying to do with the book and with your life's work. Well, Representative Huffman, thanks for joining us. We appreciate not just the work you do on this, but the work you do in Washington, D.C. as well. Just proud to know you and have you as a friend and a bit of a mentor. So thanks for everything. Congratulations on the book. It's exciting. And best of luck on this next step of things.
Thanks so much for having me, Fred.
All right, we'll see you soon. He was actually from the show. He was on the old when we still did, and we'll be going back to it, I'm sure, in the hot seat. We talked about his race for Congress, and he's such a brilliant mind and a good dude. I want to finish the show on. Sometimes my outros are brief. This one's a little bit longer, but I want to talk about money and the economy and the affordability crisis that we keep talking about, which is the cost of living crisis. We have a cost of living crisis. You know, something I talk about in my other job is cost, corruption, and chaos. And all three of those are tied to this. And this is this little short video that came out this week of now soon to be ex-spokesman Caroline Leavitt talking about, well, here.
Allowing complete lawlessness and chaos across our country. We had 4 years of that under Joe Biden. Thanks to President Trump and Republicans and common sense policies across the board, our country is safer. Our country is more affordable.
Our country's more affordable. I mean, she's very intense and also very effing wrong. I mean, let's be honest. None of that's true. Like, none of it's true. We are not more affordable. And that leads to this discussion. So here is the headline: workers' wage gains have been erased by inflation. So, you know, usually we're bouncing around 3.2, 3.5% of wage gains. Obviously, folks, we ain't keeping up. And look, this isn't a secret. You know it because you live it. And look, the top 20% of our country owns 85, actually 90% now, I think, of all stocks and assets. Yeah, if you're in the market and the market's booming thanks to AI stock almost exclusively, you're doing great. You're doing great. You're rich as hell. You've never been rich or hell. This top 20% of our economy, income earners, they are 58% of consumer spending right now. If you're rich, life is good. If you're a normal human being, things are really bad. Energy prices alone in my home state was 25% or 37% last year. It's going up another 13% this year. Gas has gone up everywhere, ridiculous amounts. But look at this. And this isn't just recent. It's just recently a lot worse. I want to show you this chart. This chart is fascinating. This is food inflation in the United States since 2021. Look at that number, you guys. So all food has gone up 28.9%. Eating at home has gone up 27.3%. Eating out has gone up 31.7%. And the key part there is the consumer price index. Below all of that, food is outperforming, out-hurting, going up faster than the consumer price index. And what does that mean? That means you're falling further and further behind. Your wages are not keeping up. And because they won't increase the minimum wage, because they won't increase salaries, instead of getting profits and passing them to workers, what they're doing instead is they're passing them on to themselves, the stock owners, with buybacks, with splits, with dividends. And the workers, the working people are falling further and further behind because it's everything. And it ain't the price of eggs right now or bacon or whatever stupid thing they try to divert our attention with. It's freaking everything. And here's the chart that will make your eyes bulge. This chart right here is the workers' slice of profits over time. Now, I want you to look at that. Corporate profits have never been higher, almost ever. And the wages and salaries of the workers as a portion of that have only been lower. Now, this chart only goes in 1950. Now, you see that there on the far left of your screen, folks. Guess where those lines cross again? 1929. 1929. Now, I'm not a history buff. I am a history buff. Maybe you're a history buff. Do you know what happened in 1929? The Great Depression. Because corporate profits were going great. The stock market was booming. Workers were struggling. And then the stock market crashed. And we all suffered for over a decade. Does that sound familiar to you? And right now, we've got a larger gap than then. Okay? Right now, we've got a larger gap than 1929. It's actually when the lines separated, I should say. Look at that gap. And this bubble is $770 billion invested in the AI industry. The industry is going to wipe out the jobs below it. It's estimated the AI changes in the next 4 years will get rid of 300,000 plus jobs of working, mostly women and minorities jobs. And they have invested $770 billion right now is passing hands within the AI industry and with the tech industry. That is more than the entire US economy. Okay, it's changing hands within the AI, and they're borrowing from each other. The profits are fake. It's all made up. There's articles that are smarter than me, but folks, we are in trouble. And if you've ever been more motivated than ever to support a candidate for office and to flip the House and the Senate, I don't know what to tell you other than look at this damn chart. And you can say what you want. I mean, if you go back to that Karen Levitt thing, oh, that was a socialism, folks. People aren't embracing socialism. Because this isn't capitalism. We're all still capitalist, but they ain't capitalism. This is theft. This is greed beyond measure. This is screwing working people so rich people can get richer. And if you don't see that, it's because you're asleep at the wheel, because working people and fixed income people cannot survive in this kind of a world much longer. And then they're going to take away the jobs that exist. I don't know what to tell you more. I don't know how much more I can motivate you to get in the fight than this. I don't know how much more I can motivate you to think about fighting for winning the House this fall and winning the Senate more than that. And it isn't about who happens to be a DSA, a progressive, a centrist. I don't care, and you should stop caring. This is about saving our economy, saving our democracy, stopping massive corruption that's taking your money away. This is about doing whatever needs to be done to stop a catastrophic collapse of our country that is coming if you don't act. So maybe you're comfortable. If you're rich, God bless you. Thank you. Get in the fight, because most of us aren't. And if you don't think this is going to affect you, you know, I talk a lot. Maybe you've seen me talk about it before by owning a peach tree. If you've ever owned a peach tree, you know you have to trim a peach tree every year, right? You have to trim your peach tree. You really do. Because what happens with peach trees, and if you've ever had one of those Bradford pears are similar too. They get real long and gangly. And when you get a good year of fruit for other reasons, the fruit itself, the weight of the fruit itself will collapse the tree. I had one. We didn't trim one year. I was busy. And sure enough, the upper branches collapsed lower. That's the K-shaped economy, folks. And when that fruit gets so big up top there, when they're so damn rich, when they're trading stocks between each other, when it's concentrated in a small few, when that peach gets really giant, big, it's going to be James the Giant Peach, but it's going to be a freaking catastrophe, because those peaches are going to collapse on everybody. And the branches are going to break up top, and they're going to collapse on the people below, and we're all going to be on the ground together. So get in the fight. Get in the fight. Be it your dollars, be it your volunteerism, whatever it takes. I don't know how much more I can tell you. This goes so far beyond our political differences. This goes so far beyond whether or not you believe this thing versus that thing, tax policy versus foreign policy. Folks, if you want to stop this before it becomes the end of this economy and the end of this democracy, you better get in the fight. So with that, I'll let you go for the night. I am Fred Wellman. This is Under Mice FP Wellman every Friday night right here on the Mice Touch Network. You can find all the writing I'm doing at fpwellman.substack.com. It's a great place to keep up with all the work I'm doing outside of this job, my other day job, which is a lot of fun and has been really exciting lately. I'd love you to go to fpwellman.substack.com to learn more about it and sign up. It's free, or you can pay, but you get the same stuff free or paid. Paid just helps me do this for a living. So with that, thanks for joining us. Remember to watch every Friday night. In the meantime, keep up the fight, folks, because as I say all the time, we're not done yet. I'll see you next week.